Welcome to Talk Tonic Los Angeles. I'm your host, Dino. Our podcast covers everything life, real people, real stories, real talk. On today's show, we're joined by Sunny Bach. She's a professional photographer, having shot some of the most prolific artists of the 20th century. For over 4 decades, Sunny has photographed people such as Carlie Simon, Billie Jean King, Madonna, and the Beastie Boys, to just name a few. Her work has been featured in Time Magazine, People, Cosmopolitan, and many other publications. And without further ado, it's my great pleasure to welcome Sunny Bach. Hi, Sunny. How are you?
Hi, Dino. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the time. So I guess we'll just jump in. At the age of 12, you started shooting photographs in Manhattan, where you were born. You borrowed your father's camera. Can you remember back to that time where that spark and that interest, came from? Was your dad himself a photographer, or where did that interest come from?
Oh gosh, my dad was a journalist for the United Nations.
Wow.
So I was always into journalism and taking pictures. When I was like 5, he brought me into the dark room, and the magic of the red light in the dark and the photo coming up in the water really was like, oh my goodness, what is it? So it was
Yeah.
like magic when I was a tiny little kid. And I remember that. And then when I was 12, around that time, I was hanging around Broadway a lot. So I lie to my parents, tell them I'm studying at the library, and then the 7 train to Times Square and go see Broadway shows, because my school brought me to, see 1776 on Broadway. So I kept on going to that theater and paying $2.50 to stand in the back and do standing room only and
Wow.
see this show. And I would see the show over and over. So after 1776 closed, then Two Gentlemen of Verona played there. And I think I saw it like 30 times or something.
Wow. That's incredible. What an amazing time like you got to experience in such a magical place that I think a lot of us, got to only maybe witness in either movies or TV shows, or just in, music, passing, whatever, pop culture. Did your folks push school on you, or were they very supportive about your interests, your arts? Were they trying to get you more to focus on other things that were more related to school versus kind of the more artsy stuff of the photography?
Well, they were very supportive, because I was very into Shakespeare and
Mm.
English. Um, I did go to school sometimes, and they were very supportive, because I did, when I was about 16, I went to an alternative high school, the same one that Adam Horowitz went to, called City As School, but I was
Mm.
in second year that it was in existence. And it was, you got credit for going to Equity Library Theater and working in the box office or building sets, and you would get English credit, and
Mm.
Manhattan School of Music. So it was great. And that's what helped me get through high school.
Oh, okay.
But taking pictures as a kid, paparazzi, from like the ages of 12, 13 till I got my first studio at 17.
Yeah, so going back again, talking about New York, and just maybe painting a picture for people that are too young to have even understood what New York was like in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
It was quite the madhouse in some sense, the city that never sleeps, right? Yeah, here you are, this young kid in the midst of a flashy neon signs, bustling streets filled with taxi cabs, day traders, the steam bellowing up from the sewers, the bodegas, the everyday people that made New York City what it is, how wonderful of a town it is. How did your adolescent self figure out where to even start shooting? Like, who were your subjects, and what were those interests that really were kind of speaking to you at such a young age to kind of propel you to the point where you eventually got to?
Um, I think through, well, hanging out at the theater and
Hmm.
backstage, a lot of celebrities would come by, and a lot of I was taking pictures. I was already playing with my dad's Nikon that he gave me, a
Hmm.
rangefinder. And I would be bulk loading film in the dark room and processing it in my parents' spare bathroom. Um, so I was taking a lot of pictures as a kid, and following the paparazzi around that were there at the time. And it wasn't such a big thing as it is, now. Maybe there were 20 or 30 guys, and autograph seekers or whatnot that would go. And I would just sort of follow with them, with Ron Galella and Robin Platzer and people, and go from event to event, but always starting on Broadway, because that's where I already was. And then a lot of celebrities went to come see the shows. And actually, I'm going through my negatives now, of the things that I shot back then,
Wow.
putting together a show of these paparazzi images that I used to take as a kid. And, Andy Warhol and
Mm.
Alfred Hitchcock and Nureyev and all this stuff. So I'm still printing them, and I'm thinking of doing a show
Yes.
here called
Yes.
Dead Celebrities.
That's fabulous. I can't wait to see that. I'm definitely going to go and definitely tell other people to check that out as well. So your first published works were for your junior high school newspaper, but
Yeah,
I do understand that that they rejected one of your interviews with Carly Simon
yeah.
just because she wasn't really known at the time. Why, and so did you ever actually get to go back and use that in one of your other jobs later down the line, or did you even think of doing that, or what was that even like?
I think I had a teacher who really liked Carly Simon, and Carly played up in Westchester, and I
Uh-huh.
went, because her publicist had turned me down. They said, "I'm sorry, little girl, you can't, you know, interview," because Carly's doing Vanity Fair and she's doing Vogue, So um, we don't have time for your junior high school paper.
Hmm.
So went backstage and waited for her, and just got to meet her, and she was so kind and nice and put me on stage and did the interview and signed autographs for all my friends.
Wow.
Big interview. I brought it back to my school paper, and they're like, "Carly Simon, who's Carly Simon? Now, we're not going to do this." So the following year, I went to Indonesia for a year with my mother, who took us
Hmm.
around,
Hmm.
and she was a she was a rising, rock star,
Yeah.
and uh, that was my first published paid interview, was
Wow.
with Carly Simon in an Indonesian rock magazine called Aktuil. So it really was fine by me. I
Do
got
you
paid.
do you
And
have that interview, that publication, that because that'd be really cool to even print something
for
like.
it's laminated somewhere, but it's
Uh-huh.
very storage.
Oh man, that's true history right there. So you opened your first studio in 1976 on Broadway and 18th Street in Manhattan while you were attending school, and that to me is so ambitious and entrepreneurial for a teenager. Where did that drive come from? Like, how are you so just motivated and driven?
I have no idea. Just sort of, my mom was a pattern maker, so
Hmm.
I want to do fashion photography, but I didn't, have any connection to any models or anything like that. I just had a connection to fashion because of my mom working on Seventh Avenue, and reading Vogue magazine and all those, fashion magazines, and opened a studio back when a 5,000 square foot studio on Broadway only cost me $500. So
Wow.
it was a deal, and I would rent out my studio and watch other amazing photographers shoot, and watch and learn by watching, because I couldn't get into FIT full time because they had a portfolio, but it was all paparazzi pictures and
Yeah.
fashion images. So it took me, I went the long route and just learned by watching and doing, and taking courses at the new school and different things like that. And then
How old were you at that point in 76 at that time?
yeah, I was 17 years old, and
Wow.
my models were dancers, gypsies from Broadway shows that I would dress up in clothes and have them jumping in the air and doing all this stuff. But they were actually dancers,
Wow.
professional Broadway dancers, but they were good looking and they served as my models for my testing and stuff like that.
That's fabulous. And I almost feel that you being that age really worked to your benefit. Like I think it probably endeared people to you and kind of maybe helped open them up to you as far as like maybe wanting to help you out or whatever. I don't know. I just feel how it is when you deal with kids. You're like, yeah, you want to yeah, kind of do what you can or whatever.
Maybe
Um,
felt like I was too young to
uh-huh.
be an assistant. I could never get hired because I was a girl, and
Mm,
they didn't want to tell girls to carry the heavy equipment, so male photographers wouldn't hire me to be their assistant. So it was really
uh,
harder than it is today. I think more women are working as assistants and stuff, but it's still tough for girls.
yeah. So at that time, how many professional female photographers did you know that were on the scene doing
Oh,
fashion or portrait or any of that stuff?
not, not a lot, not a
Uh-huh.
lot. Yeah, I think even a woman in the business, there were just a few.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and, Annie Leibovitz wasn't huge yet. Uh,
Mm,
Definitely somebody that's, come up, but it was about that time that she was doing better. Uh,
gotcha.
yeah, boys' world, all the way.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy that's shifting and, hopefully eventually it'll be even out. Still have a lot of work to do for that. It's now the 1980s and you have developed a style of your very own using a Polypen film photography camera, which
Mm.
was made by Polaroid. This camera used 35 millimeter color film. How did you translate that photography into actual I guess photography.
Well, actually, Polapan film is a black and white. Whoops, did I lose you?
No,
Sorry.
I'm still here.
Hey, I don't see you. There we go. Yeah, Polapan film is a black and white Polaroid film. It's
Uh-huh.
not a so you put it in your own in a 35 millimeter camera,
Okay.
and then what you do is you process it in a little processor in 1 minute. So you didn't have to wait,
Oh.
for the lab to get it back to you.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I shot a lot of the Beastie Boys on that because that was what I was using. I was experimenting with it, doing a lot of fashion covers for Details magazine and fashion layouts using this new film that's actually meant for the medical world, but I like
Ah.
that it looked, and I used it widely in the 80s, and it's not around that much anymore because is Polaroid even around? But yeah, it was a period of time that I used it as one of my main films. In
And
addition,
yeah, and it wasn't like from the photos I saw, it didn't look like it was very bulky. Like it was kind of like, it was something that you can
it
carry.
was actually a very thin film. The emulsion was very, very fragile. If you blew on it, was over, and it was
Oh, okay.
so that's why people didn't really use it that much. So it was a very sensitive film, and it had a really interesting kind of a sepia tonish kind of a look to it
Mm-hmm.
that was different from uh, you know black and tri-X, what everybody else was using, tri-X or Ilford. So I've played with different films and different styles and different processes over the years.
Yeah, and so you must have been one of the very few people doing that specific style of photography.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And now you find yourself in New York City's downtown diva scene. This is the 70s and 80s. The
Yeah.
queer community was very much the catalyst of so many fashion trends. And new music that hit the radio waves. A lot of DJs and the gay nightclubs were always catapulting some of the newest music that was being played on radio stations. A lot of people maybe don't know that, but that was really the deal. So it's like if you got a DJ to play your music in some of these nightclubs and the crowd was dancing to it and they were, you know, you can pretty much bet that song would end up on the radio
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, one night I was at Studio 54 and this girl came on stage with two backup dancers. She was so amazing, but I didn't catch her name. So the next day I was at my studio. I was shooting this young singer that my friend was uh, featuring at his nightclub called Bay City in Long Island, and in the Hamptons. And I was like, oh, I don't want to shoot this girl. I don't even know who she is. And he's like, please, please, she's gonna be great. She's awesome. I'm like, okay, if you say so. So I shot her, and I'm like midway through it, I'm like, wait a minute, Madonna, weren't you playing studio last night? And she's like, yeah. I go, oh my God, I loved you. I can't believe you're here in my studio and it's you. You're just amazing. And we're chatting on, and it turned out to be Madonna.
Wow. So
Madonna,
she must have been, I would imagine like 19 at this time, or maybe even a little younger.
a little bit older, I think.
A
Don't
little
you
older. Okay. So this was 19, I'm sorry,
think?
what?
Out, you know that song?
What's it?
Border.
Which one? Oh, Borderline. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. But so Studio 54 closed in, I think in 1980. It went from 77 to 80, I believe. 3 years.
Yeah, a little bit, even a little bit. It was open a little longer because Mark Fleischman took from Steve Rubell, and
Okay.
open for a few years after. But yeah, it was never the same after Stevie died. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a great time. You know, where
Yeah.
went every night, and if you weren't there, you felt like you were missing something. And at that time, you probably were, but
Yeah. So when you got in, where you had your camera with you and you were
no,
going, no, just they,
no.
yeah.
I was shooting a lot of fashion at the time.
Uh-huh.
So I'd come in with a bunch of models and hang out till, the whole place closed at 4 in the morning.
Oh my
And then
goodness.
after hours club with the Beastie, they
Yeah.
Beasties didn't really hang out there, but they were more in the downtown clubs at Danceteria or
Uh-huh.
Save the Robots of the World or the Movie
Limelight or something. Yeah.
Palladium. That Palladium was after Studio, so it was, times after that.
Right. So it was around this time you landed a gig at Details Magazine, I think, or maybe somewhere along these lines. You were doing advertising and fashion photography.
Mm-hmm.
One of the many artists that you were working with, the Village People. Did you ever ask them how they ended up picking the characters that they were working with, or did they ever share that with you at all?
No, not really. I mean, I think that was Giorgio Moroder created that,
Uh-huh.
believe, but I knew David Hodo, who
Hmm.
was a production guy from the dance world, where he was a dancer on Broadway, and he was a Buddhist and
Okay.
chanted Nam Myoho Kyo, and so did I in that group. And so we chanted together. And Victor Willis was one of the first people to take me out to eat at Joe Allen.
Oh, nice.
Wound up living with Randy Jones, who was the cowboy, years later, like maybe 83 or 84, and we were roommates
Oh,
and
wow.
photo studio together in the loft, in his loft down in the Village. So I have separate relationships not related to the Village People.
Yes.
And but so consequently after that I wound up shooting a single cover for them, just I don't know, sometime in the mid 80s, I guess.
Oh, wow.
um yeah, but here's the funny thing, I've never even seen them perform live.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna ask you if you ever got a
Like,
chance to see them.
like I would come to the show at 11 and it was over at 10, stuff like that. So I've never even seen them perform live at a concert. but just never made it.
Wow, it's funny even to hear that that nut job Trump was using their music for
Oh
some
yeah,
of his rallies. I was like, what? It's good. This what a bizarre world we live in.
yeah, I always think of that too. I always call Randy. Randy's down in Florida now.
Oh wow, that's cool. So you still keep in touch with one with him, huh?
In touch with Randy.
That's great. That's great. Are they still playing together or doing any
Left them long ago, so there's an incarnation of the Village People,
uh-huh.
but none of the original guys are in it at this point.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
So 1984, you had an intern by the name of David Skilkin. He
Uh,
he introduced you to his former bandmates from The Young and the Useless. What
yes.
was that interaction like with those guys in this time?
It was Dave was my intern because he went to City as school as well.
Hmm.
And after I graduated and after Adam had graduated, Dave went because I think he's a little bit younger than Adam. And so he was at my studio and a lot, as
Yeah.
a school and getting credit. And the guys would come with him
Okay.
up or stuff. So they were always hanging out, and uh, they just they hung out a lot, and I was like, well, what are these guys doing here? And later, I think I figured out, oh my god, they like the models, because of course that's why they were always there, and I would see them every night. We'd go out to the clubs or go to local bars or hang out
Right.
chunking and listen to do stuff or have local gigs or something like that. But like they I guess it was the 80s, they opened for Madonna at the Garden. I remember
Right.
that, that they came back and everybody was teasing Yauk about Madonna and stuff because I think he liked her and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think in one of I don't know if it was one of the interviews or I heard that yeah, I guess they shared a little makeout session backstage or something like that.
So, yeah, I mean, I hung out with them a lot at that time, and that was just the beginning. And we came out to LA around, during License to Ill and stuff. And yeah, it was pivotal in that they moved here and I wound up moving here. And my mom lived here already, so
Oh,
I just
okay.
time here and opened a studio downtown.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
I'm and
Well,
it was great.
you were just from what of the stuff that I had read earlier, you before you had moved to LA, you were kind of going from New York to I think it was Paris, back to LA or whatever. You were kind of bouncing around a
In
bit.
London in 90. I guess at that time I had a studio in New York, LA, and London at the same time.
Hmm.
But and I would be traveling between them, but mostly for fashion, doing fashion stuff and living in a model house uh, in West Hampstead in London. And
Hmm.
uh, my
How did you like fashion photography versus portrait photography and like I guess there's so many different personalities in these two worlds. What do you prefer more or do you have a preference?
I love fashion. I loved fashion at that time. I don't really feel that LA had a really strong fashion scene per se,
Hmm.
but here it was more celebrity portraiture. That was the big thing, and I would do a lot of at home with
Mm-hmm.
Gregory or whoever, all the shot a lot of the 90210 kids and Luke Perry and Jason Priestley and all the Keanu Reeves, all those kind of people for either Details magazine or for stock photography that would go around the world, and do that. That scene is kind of not uh, as vibrant as it used to be because everybody is a photographer now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have your iPhone and you are good to go, and it's so much better than even your old Nikon and so it's different. I won't say it's better or worse, but it's different.
Yeah, it's different, but the nice thing is that you come from an era, and I myself too, to some degree, where this equipment, if you knew how to use it and maximize its capabilities, and you were able to bring out these beautiful portraits and photographs of moments captured in time and special, these scenarios that will never ever be replicated again, and that is worth more than anything. I think it's incredible. I wanted to ask you, so when the Beastie Boys were working on that album with Rick Rubin, Licensed to Ill, they did that music video at your studio, Fight for
Right.
Your Right to Party. and
Yeah.
and I wanted to ask you, how did that initial, who asked you for permission to do that, or did you say, hey, here's the studio,
Uh,
go ahead, or what was it? How
one
did
of the
that go?
yeah, one of the guys, I don't know if it was Rick or Adam, just sort of asked, if they could use my studio to shoot this video. And yeah, I just let them, they go, hey, do you want to be in it? We're going to throw these pies and everything. I'm like, no, 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 no. Okay, but everybody was in it, Aura and, and
Yeah,
um, Say and, Dave and everybody. So all the friends were in the video.
right, right.
Whipped cream everywhere, especially
Oh,
carpet, which never smelled the same.
oh
So
no.
that was kind of a bummer. But yeah, that whole album came out and it changed everybody's lives.
Yeah, yeah. And did you hear, because like in '83 that they were transitioning from punk rock to rap, and the first thing that they put out was Cookie Puss, and a lot of the local college radio stations were playing it. Did you ever actually hear it on the radio yourself, or did you come
No,
across that?
I wasn't, no, not really.
No.
I was in my own world of doing fashion and stuff, and the guys were around, but I didn't really even listen to Cookie Puss at the exact time that it came out.
Okay.
I would see Russell every night
Yeah.
at the clubs and everything. We socialized a lot and things, but and I've been to a few concerts more after, when we were touring and stuff like that.
Uh-huh. So you got to go on some of those tour dates with them?
Yeah, local stuff. And then I think I went to Detroit and Cleveland and down here in LA, did a few things, but that more as a guest. And but I didn't do very much. It was during that tour with Run DMC or with Public
Uh-huh.
Enemy, two
Yeah.
different um, tours and stuff. And so I'd just go out with them and hang out. But it wasn't like I didn't go for the long haul. I just went and stayed with them at the hotels and stuff like that, and took pictures and that were used in tour books and
That's
uh,
cool.
you know different things later.
Yeah. And then I guess just to kind of wrap things up, on this lifelong journey that you've been on, is there anything that you would change if you were able to at all?
Hmm. No, not really. I put all those images into a box and didn't look at them for 25 years.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
that's because of the art crawl that I pulled them out. So I don't know that I would have done anything different.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know. No, I
Okay.
think it was great and perfect the way that it is.
I like that. Yeah. And lastly, if you were able to travel back in time in a time machine and tell your 12-year-old self something, what would you think that might be?
Oh, wow. Chant more, think less.
What was that again?
Said chant more, think less.
Oh, okay. That's good. Yeah, I know it's hard for kids or even young adults to settle into a place where you can kind of really
Just
focus. Yeah, ab- absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have today. We appreciate you spending yours with us. If you're interested in checking out some of Sunny Bach's work, you can visit her website at sunnybach.com. That's sunnybak.com. She sells autographed prints of Beastie Boys, and she's going to be having hopefully a wonderful show of some of her paparazzi photography, and we'll definitely let you guys know about that. You may follow Talk Tonic Los Angeles on social media platforms at Talk Tonic Los Angeles. Join us next time for another episode. Sunny, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking with me today, and have a lovely rest of your night.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye.